Hey, it was good, man. I've been recording for a while now, and my mic was off. My mic was off, but I'm watching. I can identify as a black lesbian. Piers Morgan on gender identity. Let's go.
Well, joining me now is the author and commentator Angelica Malik, Talk TV's Esther Krakow, and Fox News contributor Tomi Lahren. So, Tomi Lahren, let me start with you. Two
Tomi
people
Lahren.
in Britain today
Love her.
who've been at the forefront of not saying what a woman is. One is Nicola Sturgeon, the ex-First Minister of Scotland, who lost her job because of this ridiculous farce of a rapist self-identifying. She tweeted today, proud on International Women's Day to visit my old University of Glasgow, and banged on about women's rights. This is the woman who just literally lost her job for allowing a male rapist into a female prison. And Sir Keir Starmer, who's leader of the opposition Labour Party here, was talking about protections for women in Parliament today, and yet he refuses to say what a woman is. Where are we with this? How has it come that leaders of parties
pieces of shits
in
of
countries
people.
like the UK, and we see a lot of it in America as well, just won't say what
How?
a woman is?
Hold on. Can I before Tommy speak? How can someone allow a male rapist to get into a stamp? I really don't want to say these wild words because YouTube might get to me. But how can anyone allow a male rapist to get into the flipping women's prison? How? I think they ended up being pregnant, right? Some of the women there in that prison. I mean, wow, what a surprise.
Well, first of all, I have to apologize to you because all of this wokeness originates here in the United States of America, and then we export it to you in the UK.
Yes, you're to blame.
So we started
Yeah, it's
this
your fault.
really in America. Yes,
even
we
in
are.
South
You know,
Africa.
the wokeness starts here, and then it, of course, moves over, and now you guys have to deal with it. The world has to deal with it. But I say this, I'm proud to celebrate International Women's Day because I know what a woman is. So I would say if you don't know what a woman is, you don't get to celebrate it. You don't get to pretend to be a feminist when
pretty,
it's
though.
helpful to you or helpful to your political narrative. You have to be able to define what a woman is. This is all a farce. They are seeking to erase women, and this is the radical rainbow mafia, as I call it. This is not your average LGBT activist. This is the rainbow mafia section of that radical LGBTQ movement that has made women less than and then has elevated all of this transgenderism and all of this pick your gender, identify as potato. They have hijacked the women's rights movement, the feminist movement, and actual feminists should be really pissed off about it.
Well, as a feminist, I am. I recently interviewed Angelica, the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, and I asked him this question, which seems to stump many other leaders. Here's the clip.
Let's watch it.
What is a woman? We know that Nicola Sturgeon can't answer that. We know Keir Starmer can't answer that. You're the British Prime Minister. What is a woman?
Of course I know what a woman is. Adult human female.
Exactly.
It's not difficult, is it, Angelica? I mean, that is what a woman is.
I mean, I don't know why you're obsessed with defining it. Like, what is a man? Like, why do we need these arbitrary...
A man is a male adult human. I mean, that's it.
Right, okay. I don't know that we need
These are just biological facts, but they're just facts. They're not arguable points, are they?
Well, but I think we have a right to self-identify. And you said
As
you
what?
want to...
As what?
If you'd like to be a woman, you can identify as a woman. I don't know why there is such an issue around
We've
that.
literally just seen a male rapist use that scam to get himself put into
Yeah,
a
what's up
female
with that?
prison where he could attack vulnerable women
Real
inside a
consequences.
female prison, when even his ex-wife said it was all a scam.
Which is a terrible, very distressing, isolated incident. And I think it's easy to take that and say that means that no one can identify as a woman. And
But
that's...
Nobody's saying you can't. Actually, yeah, we are saying you can't just identify as a woman just like that. The fact that it has actual physical consequences makes it a huge concern. Period. I don't understand. As long as there's actual physical consequences, that makes it a huge concern. How can a male rapist be allowed to go into a woman's prison just because he just said, I identify as a woman? Oh my goodness. These are the same courts that be taking you to prison for years just because you committed you didn't pay your fines. You didn't maybe you did some maybe your guy who sells drugs at a flipping corner of the street, and then they'll give you 10 years. These are the same courts. These are the same courts that be harsh for little minor crimes. right? Little minor crimes, right? These are the same courts that. Okay, I don't want to talk too much.
That's
Man.
not fair.
Incident, though.
But it's
42% of trans-identifying prisoners in prison are in there for sex crimes. There's actually an advantage, evidently, to identifying as a female because they never identify as male because somehow male prisons seem less appealing to them. It's really weird. Anyway, but
Is it limitless, this self-identity?
It's not totally limitless.
What's the
but
limit?
when you're talking about International Women's Day, I don't know why we take the conversation around International Women's Day and make it about this.
But if anyone,
there's so many benefits.
right? But if
to having
anyone,
a day.
according to you, can
We're talking about a
identify
real
as
problem.
woman, anyone can, right?
I don't see a problem with
Just
someone
literally put the hand up and say, "I'm a woman."
But
That's
but
what that
it's
guy
not
did.
An easy thing to do to go out into
Actually,
the
it's
world.
not.
Oh,
it's very easy.
that guy did it,
It's
and
You
it
might
seemed
think it's
easy.
to say, but to decide to do that, to say
what
this
does
is
doing
who,
it involve?
Yeah, but
whatever that person decides, but to
Does
go
it
out
involve
into the
makeup?
world and say I don't identify as perhaps the sex I
So
was
why
born
can't
as,
I
it's not-
identify? Okay, why can't I identify as a black lesbian?
Well, firstly, I mean, it was
I'm serious. Seriously. If I can identify as anything without any need to prove I'm actually what that is, why can't I on International Women's Day say, I'm Piers Morgan, I'm a black lesbian?
I think taking it to a kind of absurd
No,
status.
I think-
where
I think
we're
that's
talking
what-
about
Hell no.
quite a
With
strong
respect, I think
physical
that
change.
you'd already opened the absurdity door by saying
Yeah.
it is limitless. You can do what you like. Anyone can say, I'm a woman. So I simply ask you, why can't I?
I mean, this point kind of ridicules trans
no.
people to an extent.
Actually, I think
that's-
what
I
you
think
said
that's
ridicules
problematic.
trans people.
You ridicule trans,
Because
exactly.
actually, people who go through the full process of transition,
Bro.
who actually go through what we used to call a sex change, which I don't think you can muck around with original biology, but those who actually go through surgical procedure over a number of years, I've got great respect for that very difficult journey they go on. I had zero respect for people who just wallop their hand up and go suddenly, I'm a woman and I want all the rights that a woman has and I want to compete, say in sport, I'm a 6'4" athlete, sprinter, swimmer, whatever, who's competed very mediocrely in male sport. I now want to come in and crush women in swimming pools and in sprinting events and break all their records, perhaps irrevocably, just by saying, I'm a woman. I think that is the absurdity you were talking about.
You know, the thing is, I don't think they care. They care, Piers. I don't think they care. I think they, like, listen. If women had to be, not raped. I don't know if they're raped in prison, but if women, if a man raped women in a women's prison, where there's not supposed to be any male prisoner in a woman's prison, of course something like that would happen. Of course he would. He would literally go to that prison. I mean, not that he would go to that prison. He would make a lot of women his bitches in that prison. He would already do. That's a given, man. That's a given. If y'all don't care about those women, listen. I'm not saying they're prisoners too. They did some crimes and whatnot, but not all of them. Not all of them did some heinous crimes. Some of them is financial stuff. Some of them is like things like fines and all that kind of stuff. I don't know, but the point is, you can never tell. And if you don't care about some of the quote unquote innocent women in that prison, you don't care about their safety when they're, in the same cell with that man. If they don't care about that, what makes us think they will care about women who are competing in sports? What makes us think they'll care about that? They just let women be raped. Right there, on the spot. They just let them be raped. All because of this self-identifying crap that managed to get its way into the system. Oh my God, the system was never perfect, don't get me wrong. But damn, I would expect more from it.
My response was to say, well, if it's limitless, why can't I then say whatever I want to say? And you say immediately, as I knew you would, well, that's ridiculous. But my point is, you were being ridiculous.
Well, that's your opinion. You can think I'm ridiculous, but I don't think you can say, well, it has to.
I don't know why I am, but you're not.
I don't think you have to say it's post-op is the only way that someone's allowed to identify as
The
trans.
original
This is
standard
not
for
us
hold on,
to
the original
decide.
standard for being transgender was being diagnosed with gender dysphoria, which is a legitimate condition. And now it's being, however way you feel. So if you feel on Tuesday you're a woman and on Thursday you're a pizza, that's perfectly valid. But to you, that's ridiculous. And I want to know why that is ridiculous. We should be talking.
You know the thing is, I think, I'm sorry to cut her, but I'm sorry for pausing so many times, but I think the reason this topic is such a hot such a hot topic, especially around this time, is because we are looking at this thing happen right before our eyes. We are looking at transgenderism as something that we used to think that this is not an okay thing. This is something that you are diagnosed with. This is gender dysphoria, something that you're diagnosed with. Now we're looking at the transition from it being a sickness to it being a movement, an acceptable thing, and it's such a weird thing to see happen right before our eyes, because not only does it affect, not only does it affect what we hear, but it also affects how we live out there. It actually affects the connections that we have with people. It affects our jobs. It affects the market. It affects all of us. It affects our kids. Our kids are being taught this ridiculous things that really kids don't need to be paying attention to. My kid needs to know how to pay taxes. He needs to know what 1 + 1 is. Doesn't need to know about gender stuff yet. Doesn't need to know about sex stuff yet. The craziest, oh my God, I've heard some crazy ass stories, man. This video was 4 months ago and things only have gotten worse, bro. Crazy.
Talking about actual women on International Women's Day, that's not crazy.
I mean, I agree. But your idea of an actual woman,
The chromosomes, it's pretty
Is an adult female.
It
It's not-
matters. It
chromosomes
matters.
are a pretty good
Identify.
indication.
I don't think you have to be
A man and a woman.
biologically female
Matters.
to identify.
Then
as a
you are
woman.
wrong, because then I can identify as a fox.
Yeah.
But again, it's
You
a kind of
can.
absurd point.
How many?
Like,
Well, let me ask you this.
privileged
Angelica, how many genders are there?
2.
There are 2 genders.
Oh.
Wow. So you don't believe in transgenders at all?
Well, I think there are.
Whoa, hang on. Whoa. There are 2 genders.
Well, it's taught in.
Well, why do you say well? You've literally just launched this huge defense of transgenderism. Now you've eradicated it.
I think
If there are 2 genders, you mean male and female, right?
there's gender fluidity. I will.
Fluid between what?
Between what?
Between different identities, and we can choose one
You
identity.
see how difficult this is, though?
But it is difficult. But I think making.
But it's not
there's-
difficult until you make it difficult. You see, the BBC has done teaching videos to 11 and 12-year-olds where they say there are 100 genders. One of them was astrogender, which is an affinity with the stars and the
Astrogender.
galaxy. My response to that on the last show I did was to say, well, in that case, I identify as a two-spirit penguin. I was then told I was being ridiculous, but I made the same point. The ridiculousness is the BBC teaching kids there are 100 genders. There aren't. It is absurd. Bring back Tomi Lahren, who I imagine is hyperventilating over there in America. Tomi, I mean, look, I don't see why, if it's limitless, I can't just say I'm Piers Morgan, I'm a black lesbian, because that is where limitless self-identity takes us.
The fact that he can say
male
that in a
rapists
straight
can say
face.
they're women and get into female prisons. It means I can say I'm a two-spirit penguin or a black lesbian, and why can't I? Because that is where it takes you.
Well, it certainly does, and I think you just had the perfect argument there. It's impossible to define, and it's impossible to stand up for, because it's a mockery of what actual people are. And furthermore, going back to children, when this happens at a young age, when you start trying to convince kids that they don't know what gender they are, or they're born in the wrong body at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10
confusing
years
them.
old, that's child abuse. All right? Gender affirming care, wherein you only tell somebody they can be whatever they want to be, regardless of their biology at a young age, that is child abuse. It's happening in the UK, it's happening in the US, and this is making
not happening
room
here,
for
thank God.
groomers to groom young people, to confuse the heck out of them, make them not know what they are, so that they can take advantage and exploit them. Now, I want to be very clear here. This is not the mainstream LGBTQ movement. There are a lot of conservatives that even support that movement. This is a radical agenda made by groomers, and they don't want you to call them groomers, which is a perfect example of why they are groomers. This is what we're doing, is to confuse young people, to confuse all people, to make them dumber, make them confused as to what they are. It's a mockery of women's rights. It's a mockery of human rights, and we should no longer be having the discussion.
And you end up with scandals like the Tavistock Clinic here in London, in the UK, where they were basically mutilating children, young, kids, teenagers, mutilating their bodies irrevocably. And then it turned out, after it closed, after a scandalous report came out, that 97% of all the patients had other conditions, from autism to depression to other issues, which may have been affecting their ability to think straight about what they want.
Listen, I'm sorry for pausing so much, but right now, this was 4 months ago. This was a while ago. But today, there's this debate, not debate, but this conversation going on. TikTok is going crazy. I don't have Twitter. Maybe it's going crazy on Twitter too. But TikTok is going crazy. I have TikTok. I love it. People are shouting at the top of their lungs about this movie called Sounds of Freedom, I believe. It's about child trafficking, I believe. I think that's what it's called. It's about child trafficking, and the mainstream media is not really, advertising it as it should. It's not, putting it at the front stage of people. They instead put Indiana Jones out there, right? They talk about Indiana Jones. They advertise Indiana Jones. These huge production companies, man, they don't even invest a single cent in showing off this movie. Never mind the production, because if Sony's not involved, they're not involved in it. But these other these other flipping media outlets, they don't even talk about it. They can talk about other movies, Indiana Jones, whatever other movies out today, some Disney ass movie, that's out today, but they're not talking about this movie. And this movie is talking about child trafficking. It's talking about groomers. It's talking about molesters. It's talking about pedophiles. Real shit, real consequential shit that's happening right now, and it's about a story of a man who is investigating this child trafficking, syndicate, and it's a huge thing, and it's such a sad thing, man. Like, when things don't affect you on a personal level, you don't really pay much attention to them, but this is a movie that's a real story. It talks about real things, and it's about, people who really had something like this affect them in a real life. And one of the lines I believe that was said in that movie was like, listen, if we don't do nothing to stop this whole thing, it'll become so big that it gets even close to people like yourself. So that this guy that was investigating was talking to another person who he was asking help from, and the person couldn't help them and whatnot. Then it just speaks so much volume. First of all, that it can reach even people like yourself. Meaning, listen, it was even talking to me at that time. It was like, listen, it can reach even you one day, right? Maybe somebody that you're related to, a young kid, maybe trafficked one day, right? Somebody in your family, somebody that you care about. Right? Or you yourself could have been that kid to some degree, And it was also speaking about how we don't really help. We don't really contribute. And people are doing their best, man. It's crazy to see how people moving today. The way people move today is different from how people used to move. The way I used to see how people moved. People move with a purpose. People move with one mind. More than they did today, more than they did yesterday, I mean, and, similar to this whole LGBTQ movement, you have millions of other people, billions of other people who are standing up for the right things in life, right? And it's good to see that. It's good to see that people can move with one mind and agree on one thing. And, and despite, whatever your wherever you come from, whatever identity you have and whatnot, it's good to see that people can come together and want to stop this thing. And it speaks about how the production, the media, it doesn't really want to show these things to the world, and how they ignore these things, and by ignoring them, you allow them to happen. It's kind of weird. Okay, I'll do a video talking about it. Let's just finish up this topic. I just wanted to talk about groomers.
Wanted to be. And that was, to me, as a father of 4 kids, utterly horrific. Just horrific. This was going on, and anyone who tried to raise concerns about this, and journalists did, were immediately branded transphobic. And Esther, this comes back to what we see with, people like J.K. Rowling, I'm no friend of J.K. Rowling. She can't stand me, and I don't like her, right? It's like fire and water. But on this issue, I've not seen a word she said that is transphobic. Yeah. I've just heard her go, I want to support and protect women's rights. For that, she's been unbelievably hounded, abused, attempts to cancel, which fortunately have backfired. But it's all wrong, this, isn't it?
The thing is, and one of the shocking things that she's been attacked for is for drawing attention to domestic violence and violence against women. And that's actually the biggest point here. Other than the fact that, that male rapist was allowed to go into a female prison in Scotland, there's a genuine danger around allowing men into women's spaces, like women's shelters and
Right.
that, and they can be there just by identifying as a woman and then identifying as a tree the next day.
Right, so
It's genuinely
Angelica, do you understand that part of the argument?
I understand that kind of the argument, but I mean, like Tomi said, I don't think this is confusing for children. I think it's giving you freedom of expression and freedom of choice.
But how many
which I think
girls
is
did you know?
important.
Like my wife was a bit of a tomboy when she was young, right? How many kids do you know, young girls in particular, who are tomboys? But if the wrong person gets hold of them and persuades them, actually, what you should start doing is mutilating your body and have a full attempt to become a boy. That's not what most tomboys end up wanting. They end up actually going through puberty, getting older, and then that's it. They become women, right? But if you get hold of these impressionable young minds too early, when they're just
real argument, real shit
around being tomboys, that's the danger to me.
I don't think the messaging is as extreme as you think it is, and I think we.
It is
we
extreme. It is that extreme. It is.
I think we whip ourselves into a frenzy thinking these things, and this language that you mentioned at the start of the show. I don't think you hear that language used that often in like everyday speech.
Which language?
And I think what you were saying.
Oh no, these are on NHS websites. No, this is where you're wrong. This is actually NHS websites in many cases. They genuinely call women chest feeders, birthing partners. They dare not say anything gender specific to women in case some trans people don't like it.
Yeah.
I say, where are the rights of women to be called what they want to be called? Why does all language have to be degendered for a tiny minority of people?
I think the problem is there's so much fear around having these kind of conversations and saying the wrong thing, getting it wrong. That means that people can't have conversations that feel kind of progressive about what
Hell
is gender.
no. You can't speak for your people, man. Even if you mean well, you know, your people are trying to force people out there. As soon as you misgender somebody, you committed a flipping war crime. You know, like, so you're even if you may be cool with that kind of stuff, like, so your people are going wild crazy. You can't even speak for them. Stop this nonsense. Damn, bro.
Identity, what does the future look like? How do we create a compassionate space? So I think to your question at the start, like, what is women and why politicians wouldn't answer it? They're so scared of getting it wrong. And
people are scared because the mob come for them.
Exactly.
And the mob needs to just go away and shut up. Anyway, I think scrap International Women's Day until we can all agree what a woman is.
No, I'm sorry. I think there's so many benefits to having International Women's Day. It'd be a real shame to do that.
Well, if you had your way, everyone would celebrate it by identifying as a woman, even if they weren't.
Well, being a woman.
Happy International Women's Day.
Okay, is he gonna say something?
I am a woman. It's a farce. Anyway, Angelica, love.
Listen, I mean, like, hey, man, listen. Shout out to Piers. Subscribe to his channel. Like the videos. Shout out to anybody that can sit in front of this woman and talk. I don't know. I don't know what to say, man. I don't really like this whole thing. I really don't like this whole thing. I feel like it's ridiculous. I feel like it's really dangerous. Because it's dangerous, I don't like it. Yeah, that's the only reason why. Otherwise, live your life. Just don't live it over there. Just don't try to force your way into my house. Don't try to educate my kids about something that they don't really need to know about. You know, if I have to track back into the things that I learned in my life, I don't think gender was one of them. You know, I think I knew that by having typical experiences as a boy, as a man, as being treated as what I am, as what the world sees me as. You understand? But I'm not speaking for a person who has gender dysphoria. If you have gender dysphoria, I think you are in the different bracket of people. And you shouldn't assume that the world is completely against you, because to be honest with you, you're just one of a few people, right? But don't be swayed in by this movement that tries to make it look like people are, you know, making you're a victim of the world or something like that. You're not a victim of the world. You're not. Okay? You can, as a Christian, I would say every one of us are victims of the world. You know, but with that being said, it's like drawing closer to what is right. I'm not gonna be biblical on you right now, but y'all really have to find Jesus, man. Like, yeah, I'm just gonna be honest with you. You gotta find common sense. You have to. At the very least, find common sense. Just find it. Anyway, thank you for watching.